picture the original Defender? Mud-caked, bone-rattling, built to survive. Now picture the same nameplate, same badge, same legend, sitting in a Waitrose car park in Surrey with a warning light nobody can diagnose. That is not a breakdown story. That is a business model. And if you think that is a coincidence, you have not been paying attention. It started in a field. Literally in 1948, a British engineer named Maurice Wilks sketched the first Land Rover Series 1 on a beach in Anglesey. What he drew was not a car. It was a tool. An 80-inch wheelbase, aluminium panels, a 1.6-litre engine borrowed from a Rover saloon, and a chassis so simple that a farmer could strip it with a spanner and have it running again by sundown. The British Army ordered its first batch within a year. Queen Elizabeth took delivery of her first one in 1952. By the early 1950s, Land Rover was building 8,000 units annually and shipping them to places where roads did not exist. The whole point was that it could not die. It crossed deserts, forded rivers, and climbed things that had no business being climbed. When it broke, which was rare, you fixed it yourself. There were no computers to confuse, no sensors to misfire, just iron, aluminium, and physics. It was not glamorous, it was honest. And that honesty built one of the most devoted customer bases in automotive history. Then someone looked at the balance sheet. The problem with farmers is that they do not have money. Bankers do. Land Rover's corporate owners figured this out somewhere in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and they could not unsee it. The question stopped being, how tough can we build this? And started being, how much will a hedge fund manager pay for the feeling of toughness? The Range Rover had already been nudging upmarket since the 1970s. But the true turning point arrived in 2011 with the Range Rover Evoque. It was the smallest, lightest Range Rover ever made, designed to fit in an urban parking space, built explicitly to attract younger, wealthier city buyers who wanted the badge without the mud. It worked. Evoque sales exploded. Land Rover had found its new customer, someone who had never left the pavement, did not intend to, and was perfectly happy paying a premium to look like they might. The engineering team was about to face the consequences of that discovery. If you are finding this breakdown useful, subscribe now. The story gets worse before it gets interesting. To sell luxury, you have to build luxury. And in the automotive world, luxury in the 2000s meant technology. Touch screens, adaptive air suspension, electronic terrain response systems, proximity sensors, and ambient lighting with 17 colour options. Land Rover packed all of it into vehicles that were still expected to drive through rivers. The problem is that fragile electronics and water are not friends. Electrical gremlins started appearing across the lineup. Infotainment systems that froze mid-journey. Air suspension compressors that failed at 60,000 miles. Terrain response modules that simply stopped responding. Owners discovered that the most capable off-road vehicle on paper could be immobilized by a software glitch that no roadside mechanic could fix. The complexity that was supposed to justify the price was quietly becoming the reason the car spent time at the dealer instead of on the road. None of this slowed the marketing department down. Land Rover's advertising is genuinely brilliant. Footage of red sand dunes, Himalayan passes, and African savanna. Evocative voiceovers about the spirit of adventure. Sponsorship of the British and Irish Lions rugby tour, association with the royal family. The Defender appears in not one but several James Bond films. The brand sold a feeling so powerfully that the actual product almost became irrelevant. Research consistently shows that a significant portion of Land Rover buyers cite lifestyle and image as their primary purchase motivator. They are not buying transport, they are buying an identity. A particular idea of themselves. Land Rover understood this earlier than almost any other manufacturer, and they built their entire commercial strategy around it. The wilderness in the advertisement exists to make the school run feel like an expedition. Here is where the numbers get ugly. In J.D. Power's 2025 US Dependability Study, Land Rover ranked 26th out of 30 brands, recording 270 problems per 100 vehicles across the first 3 years of ownership. The Land Rover Defender. Okta alone averaged 274 problems per 100 vehicles, with electrical and electronic issues identified as the primary culprits. RepairPal puts the average annual repair and maintenance cost of a Land Rover at $1,174. The industry average is $652. Land Rover owners visit a mechanic roughly 0.7 times per year compared to 0.4 times for the average car. 16% of those visits result in a repair bill exceeding $2,000. Consumer Reports predicts below-average reliability for the 2025 models based on the brand's historical pattern. What car ranked Land Rover 27th out of 31 manufacturers in their brand reliability survey? These are not anomalies. They are a pattern so consistent across so many years and so many independent sources that the word reliability has essentially become ironic when applied to this brand. But here is the twist nobody talks about. Broken cars make money. Not for the owners, for the dealers. Land Rover's authorised service network operates one of the most profitable after-sales models in the luxury segment. An annual service alone can cost between $1,000 and $2,000 at an authorised dealer. A 60,000-mile major service can approach $6,000. Air suspension repairs run $1,000 per corner. Compressor replacements add another $2,000. Dealers routinely upsell additional recommended services that inflate already eye-watering bills. In 2024, US auto parts makers set aside $4.7 billion for future warranty claims, with OEMs increasingly passing repair costs back to the network. But the dealer does not lose, because a car that needs frequent specialist expensive attention is a car that generates revenue on every return visit. The complexity that infuriates the owner is the exact complexity that makes the service department profitable. Every warning light is an invoice waiting to happen. Now ask yourself who actually absorbs the pain of all that unreliability. The answer is almost nobody, because a significant proportion of Land Rover's core customer base never owns the car long enough to feel it. Leasing data tells the story clearly. Land Rover actively promotes 3-year lease cycles across its entire lineup. Range Rover Evoque, Range Rover Vela, Defender, all structured to be returned before the expensive problems typically compound. 3 years in, the air suspension is still technically functional. The infotainment has not yet started having existential crises. The new lessee gets a fresh car, the dealer gets another service contract. The brand never has to confront the long-term cost of its own engineering decisions, because the cycle resets before the bill arrives. It is a beautiful piece of financial engineering disguised as a car deal. The clearest proof of how far Land Rover has travelled from its origins is the new Defender. When Land Rover retired the original in 2016, after 68 years of production, the fan base mourned. The new Defender launched in 2020 as a genuinely capable vehicle, but also as a fundamentally different one. Unibody construction, touchscreen LED interior, optional air suspension. A 2025 model tested by reviewers was priced at $108,278, fully configured. One purist's backlash was so significant that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, billionaire founder of Ineos, created an entirely new company specifically to build what the original Defender had been. The Ineos Grenadier exists solely because the new Defender stopped being the old Defender. Land Rover responded by positioning the new model against the Mercedes G-Wagon. A vehicle that used to fix itself in the desert was now competing for who had better stitching on the heated front seats. So where does that leave us in 2026? Land Rover sits at the bottom of every credible reliability ranking. Annual repair costs run nearly double the industry average. Warranty claims are absorbing billions across the broader supplier network. A core fan base that felt abandoned and went to build their own replacement brand. And yet Land Rover prices keep climbing. Order books stay full, and the badge still carries genuine aspirational weight in affluent postcodes across the world. That is not a contradiction. That is the lesson. Land Rover has proven something that no business school case study fully captures. If your branding creates a strong enough identity, a powerful enough feeling of who you are when you own this thing, then the product almost does not have to work. You're not buying reliability. You're buying a belonging. You're buying the version of yourself that could survive the wilderness, even if the closest you get to wilderness is a damp Thursday in a Waitrose car park. Branding won, engineering lost, and Land Rover is laughing all the way to the service bay. If this kind of forensic breakdown of corporate strategy is what you're here for, subscribe and hit the bell. The next one goes even deeper.